Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in.
Happy Friday, everybody. We begin with a space we've been following closely for some time now: consumption and its role in the Chinese economy. This week, Substack outlet The East is Red, spelled R-E-A-D, published a brilliant translation and analysis of a recent speech from Xu Gao, the chief economist and assistant president of Bank of China International, leading the research department and sales and training department of the company. He is also a professor at Peking University in Beijing. The entire speech is worth a read for those interested in this topic. The East is Red has provided an excellent summary of Xu's points. Xu argues that the significantly lower consumption to GDP ratio in China, compared to the global average, quote, is the fundamental cause of the country's lackluster domestic demand and economic slowdown, end quote. He attributes this low consumption level to unusually high savings rates, with both enterprise and household savings rates remaining notably elevated. This is in stark contrast to other economies, where the two rates typically exhibit a negative correlation. Xu highlights the profoundly obstructed channel of income transfer from the corporate to the household sector as the primary reason behind the distinctive consumption pattern. Quote, the extensive presence of state-owned enterprises in China, whose profits and dividends primarily flow to the state rather than households, diminishes the wealth effect that might otherwise stimulate household consumption, end quote. Nor is the highly concentrated ownership of many Chinese private enterprises doing much to increase the wealth or consumption of the wider population. Furthermore, Xu points to the absence of an efficient market mechanism, again a result of the disconnect between the corporate and household sectors, to balance the distribution of national income between consumption and investment. Quote, this shortfall means the household sector is unable to influence corporate dividend policies, resulting in excessive corporate savings and overinvestment. End quote. Next up for the economy, Beijing appears to be serious about addressing the payment issues foreign visitors have in the People's Republic of China. Part of wider efforts to have more people visit China for economic activity, foreign investment, and also to exert soft power. This week, a notice issued by the People's Bank of China, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, and the National Cultural Heritage Administration required scenic spots with 5A or 4A designations and hotels above 3 stars, as well as other provincially and state-designated tourism spots, to accept foreign bank cards. Regulators want to improve services for international visitors and make it easier for them to spend money. After 3 years of the pandemic, QR code payments have become so mainstream in China, resulting in a significant reduction in the number of ATMs for cash withdrawals. However, Chinese financial media outlet Yizai reports that the rollout of POS machines that accept overseas cards has been slow due to concerns among foreign card payment networks. A report from Ping An Securities Co. Limited last year found that local merchants are also wary of adopting these devices due to the higher fees involved. Retailers with domestic payment systems are typically charged 0.6% of the value of transactions, with reduced rates applicable to certain transactions. In comparison, foreign cards costs typically range from 2 to 3% of the transaction value, quote, which disincentivizes local merchants from using systems that process payments made via foreign bank cards, end quote. This regulation announcement this week will force Chinese hotels with 3-star ratings or more and others to accept payments with foreign bank cards. Next up, several large Taiwanese manufacturers are considering setting up a second headquarters overseas to ensure that they can keep operating in the event of a mainland attack on their country. UK-based Financial Times, in a report published this week, writes that the plans, quote, highlight how global efforts to secure supply chains are forcing companies to play a vital role in manufacturing networks, especially for tech products, to make excessive changes, end quote. Renier Gore, a partner and head of the family office business at KPMG in Taiwan, told the outlet, quote, we have clients who are looking into the planning or setting up of a second headquarters. The groups are in manufacturing and currently looking for a location for a second headquarters in Southeast Asia, just in case an emergency happens in Taiwan, to give them an alternative command system abroad that they can immediately activate, end quote. Although a PRC attack remains unlikely in the near term, increased pressure from Beijing and military intimidation tactics have led many foreign companies and consumers of Taiwanese groups to initiate some contingency planning. An unnamed country head of a global consultancy in Taiwan reportedly told the Financial Times, quote, discussions about backup headquarters have started at the top of the largest groups. You have to ask yourselves, If a conflict forces us to cease operations in Taiwan for 6 months or a year, can we survive? You don't need investor relations here, but you can't survive without finance, payroll, and receivables. End quote. Meanwhile, the US plans to award Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Co. $6.6 billion in grants and as much as $5 billion in loans to help the world's top chip maker build factories in Arizona, part of Washington's drive to boost domestic production of critical technologies. On Monday this week, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo announced a preliminary agreement which includes TSMC constructing a third factory in Phoenix, adding to 2 facilities in the state that are expected to begin production in 2025 and 2028. In total, the package will support more than $65 billion in investments at the 3 plants by TSMC, the world's leading chip maker. Raimondo said the new fab will rely on next-generation 2-nanometer process technology, expressing, quote, "For the first time, we will be making, at scale, the most advanced semiconductor chips on the planet here in the United States of America. By the way, with American workers." End quote. Chinese financial media outlet Caixin writes that TSMC's award marks another milestone in Biden's push to boost the U.S. semiconductor industry with the 2022 CHIPS and Science Act. Intel Corp has already inked a preliminary agreement for nearly $20 billion in grants and loans, while Samsung Electronics Co. of South Korea is expected to receive a grant of more than $6 billion.
If you're enjoying today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. Liking, sharing, and subscribing are all helps for the channel. And for anyone who can go that extra mile and help me keep China Update financially sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is a lot of work, but all your support are all incredible sources of motivation. So thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support.
Next up, Jamie Dimon, Chief Executive Officer of JP Morgan Chase, published his letter to shareholders in the 2023 annual report. In a stunning development, the American billionaire banker made very frank comments on China, comments which we very rarely see from leading business people. The points shouldn't sound too novel to regular viewers, but it's notable that such a figure is making them to Washington policymakers and US businesses. To end today's video, we will quote Dimon's statements on China directly. "It is a valid point that the Western world, both government and businesses, essentially underestimated the growing strength and potential threat of China. It's also true that China has been comprehensively and strategically focused on these economic issues, all while we slept. But let's not cry over spilled milk. Let's just fix it. We missed the potential threat from the 3 vantage points. The first is companies' over-reliance on China as the sole link in their supply chain, which can create vulnerabilities and reduces resiliency. But to the extent this involves everyday items like clothes, sneakers, vaccine compounds, and consumer goods, this dependency is not as critical or complex and will eventually be sorted out. The second is the most critical. The US cannot rely on potential adversaries for materials essential to our national security. Think rare earths, 5G and semiconductors, penicillin and materials critical to essential pharmaceuticals, among others. We also cannot be sharing vital technologies that can enhance an adversary's military capabilities. The United States should properly and narrowly define these issues and then act unilaterally, if necessary, to fix them. The third is also complex, which is countering unfair competition or mercantilist behavior in critical industries. Think electric vehicles, renewable energy, and AI, among others. Examples of this would be where a state, any state, uses government powers, capital, subsidies, or other means to dominate critical industries and deeply damage the economic position of other nations. Weakening a country economically can render it a virtual vassal state, reliant on potential adversaries for essential goods and services, which also weakens it militarily. We cannot cede our important resources and capabilities to potential adversaries. Here ends the direct quote and today's episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Friday, and I will see you all tomorrow.